At dinner, my sister looked at my son and said, "Some kids are just born behind," then laughed. My son quietly put his fork down. I said, "Behind? Like how you and your kids are still in my house and eating my groceries." She froze. Mom whispered, "Please, don't do this." But I didn't even want to have dinner that night. It had already been a long week, and I was tired of pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. But my mom insisted. She said it would be nice to have one evening where everyone sat together and acted like a family. And because I still foolishly believed that keeping the peace was worth something, I agreed. I set the table, cooked enough food for a small army, and called everyone down. My daughter, Isla, helped me plate things while my son Jesse sat quietly scrolling through his phone at the table. He's 12, quiet, sensitive, a little behind in school, but he's trying. He's sweet, he cares about people, and he's mine. So when my sister Erin turned to him and said casually like she was commenting on the weather, "Some kids are just born behind," and then laughed, everything in me went cold. Jesse didn't say a word. He just put his fork down. My dad tried to change the subject. My mom shot me a panicked look, but I wasn't going to let it slide behind like, "How you and your kids are still in my house eating my groceries." She froze. Her eyes went wide like I had just slapped her across the face. Mom whispered, "Please don't do this," but it was already happening. Let me back up for a second. 3 months earlier, Erin's husband kicked her out. Apparently, he'd had enough of her drama, spending, and the way she treated everyone like they owed her something. He called me in tears. I let her move in with her 2 kids, thinking it'd be a few weeks, a month at most. I gave her the guest room, cleared out closet space, and even set up a little study corner for her kids in the dining room. She never once offered to pay for anything. Not the food, not the utilities, not even the toilet paper her kids were going through like it was water. Meanwhile, my husband and I were picking up the slack, and she was out shopping. New shoes, hair appointments, fancy handbags she didn't need. When I asked how she was affording it, she shrugged and said Mom and Dad were helping her. Turns out they were sending her money every week. Money she wasn't using to feed her kids, but to keep up appearances. And I swallowed all of it. I kept saying, "It's fine. It's temporary. It'll pass." Until she mocked my son at my own table. Erin tried to laugh it off. Said I was overreacting. Said she was just joking. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "If you're so funny, maybe go rent a comedy club instead of living in my guest room." Silence. Her kids stopped eating. Mine looked down at their plates. Mom stood up and said, "We didn't need to do this." Dad muttered something about bad timing. Then Erin said something that almost made me throw the plate I was holding. She said, "Well, if it's such a burden, maybe you shouldn't have offered in the first place." I walked over to the kitchen, turned off the stove, and said, "Cool. Then consider this meat on offering." Everyone started talking at once. Mom said I was being dramatic. Dad said I was making things worse. Erin was standing up now, yelling about how she had nowhere to go. Her kids were crying. Jesse had quietly left the table and gone to his room. I told her she had until the end of the month to figure it out. That I'd help with first month's rent, but that was it. I was done. The fight got loud. Loud enough that one of my neighbors texted asking if everything was okay. It didn't get physical, not that night, but it came close. And when it was over and everyone went to bed, I sat in the laundry room and cried until 2 o'clock in the morning. I had no idea that was only the beginning. The next morning, Erin acted like nothing happened. She was in the kitchen sipping coffee from one of my mugs, scrolling her phone while my husband and I were getting the kids ready for school. No apology, no acknowledgement, just silence, as if the whole thing at dinner was a scene from some other family's nightmare. I noticed her kids were unusually quiet, too. They didn't touch the breakfast she made, just toast and jelly, and they avoided eye contact. My daughter, Isla, gave me a look when she saw it. We didn't need to say anything. We both knew something had shifted. That day, my husband texted me, "You okay? You sure about this?" I told him, yes, I had to be. I wasn't going back on it. Erin had until the end of the month, and then she was out. But something about the whole day just felt off, like the house itself had started rejecting her. She slammed doors louder. She left dirty dishes in the sink on purpose. She forgot to pick her kids up from school once, even though it was her turn. When I reminded her, she said something like, "Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was your unpaid nanny now." Things got worse fast. My mom called me 3 times that week, each time trying to smooth things over. She kept telling me Erin was going through a hard time, that she didn't mean what she said, that maybe I was projecting because Jessie was struggling in school. I almost laughed. My sister was living in my house, eating my food, letting her kids wreck my living room while I worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. And I was the one being accused of projecting. Then something happened that pushed it all to a different level. I got home from work early one Friday. I don't usually. I had swapped shifts with a coworker. I came in through the garage quietly, thinking I'd surprise Isla and maybe take her out for ice cream before dinner. She'd been a trooper through all this. But when I opened the door to the living room, I heard voices upstairs. I froze. It was Erin's voice and my husband's laughing, not just casual laughing. Something about it felt wrong. I didn't even breathe. I moved quietly up the stairs, down the hall, to the guest room door. It was cracked open. What I saw made my stomach drop. I didn't need to see everything. I didn't need to hear anything else. They were close. Too close. He wasn't pulling away. My vision blurred instantly. I stepped back. I couldn't think straight. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't say a word. That I walked back down the stairs like I was in a trance. My legs were shaking so badly, I had to grip the railing to keep from falling. I waited in the kitchen, 5 minutes, 10, I don't even remember. Then Erin came down alone, like nothing had happened. She didn't see me standing there until she was halfway across the room. I asked her how long it had been going on. She looked like she was deciding whether to lie or pretend she didn't understand. Then I saw it, the smug little half smile. That's when I snapped. I lunged at her, grabbed her hair, and dragged her toward the front door. She screamed, called me crazy, said I'd lost my mind. I didn't care. I didn't stop. I opened the door and shoved her out onto the porch. Then I turned, walked back into the kitchen, and punched my husband in the face so hard I felt one of his teeth give under my knuckle. He didn't even try to defend himself. He just stood there, bleeding, stunned. I didn't say a word. I just pointed toward the door to by midnight. They were all gone. Her kids, him, everything. After I slammed the door shut that night, the whole house felt wrong. I didn't sleep. I just sat in the living room with the lights off, staring at nothing while the microwave clock ticked minute by minute into the early morning. My hands still ached from hitting him. My chest was still heaving from dragging her out of my house. But I didn't regret it. I wasn't sorry. I just felt hollow. The next morning, Isla didn't ask a single question. She came into my room around 7, crawled into bed beside me, and lay there without saying anything. Her head on my shoulder, her breathing calm. That's what broke me. I almost explained. I almost said, "Your father isn't coming back." But the words felt too raw, too adult. She was only 10. How do you tell a 10-year-old that her aunt, the one who painted her nails and watched cartoons with her on weekend mornings, had been fooling around with her dad while you worked late shifts to keep the household running? So I just told her we'd be okay, that it was going to be just us for a while. She nodded. I think she already knew. Later that day, Jesse came home from school and asked if his dad had gone on a trip. I said yes, a short one. He didn't question it, but he kept glancing at the guest room door, like the quiet was bothering him too. Erin's kids hadn't come to say goodbye. No one had. And even though Jesse didn't show it much, I knew that silence carved a small hole in his chest. That week was brutal. The house was quieter than it had ever been. I used to dream about silence. With 6 people under one roof, it felt like a luxury. But when I finally had it, it didn't feel like peace. It felt like something had been scooped out of the walls. My mom called 3 days later. She'd clearly already spoken to Erin. I could hear the tension in her voice, like she didn't want to believe it, but knew better than to ask. I told her the truth. Not everything, but enough. She went quiet for a long time, then asked if I was okay. I said I didn't know. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. "Grace, you didn't have to kick the kids out too." I told her I didn't. I kicked Erin out. She chose to take them. I didn't touch their things. I didn't throw anything away. I didn't even raise my voice to them. But I wasn't going to let her stay. Not after what I saw. She asked if I'd talk to my husband. I hadn't. I didn't want to. The next day, I took half a day off work and went to my first therapy session. It was strange sitting across from someone who knew nothing about me, trying to explain why I was unraveling without sounding unhinged. But the therapist was calm. She listened without interrupting. When I told her about Jesse's quiet fork drop at dinner, about Erin's stupid laugh, about the note I later found on my pillow that said, "You always play the victim," In her handwriting, she didn't flinch. She said anger was normal. That betrayal cuts deeper when it comes from people you've protected. But it wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. I let Erin live under my roof for free. I fed her kids. I covered for her when her son got into trouble at school. I lent her my car when she said hers wasn't working. I stuck my neck out for her again and again. And she repaid me by crawling into bed with the one person I trusted most. That weekend, I boxed up the things she left behind. Her shampoo in the guest bathroom, her kids' school supplies still on the dining table, a single sock in the laundry room that wasn't mine or Isla's. I couldn't throw them away, but I couldn't look at them either. So I put everything into one plastic bin and left it in the garage. Then, on Sunday, something strange happened. I was heading upstairs when I noticed the guest room door, the same one I'd shut days earlier, was open. I hadn't touched it, and no one else was home. I walked in slowly, half expecting the room to be empty. Instead, the bed was freshly made. And folded neatly on the pillow was one of Erin's cardigans, the beige designer one she never let her daughter wear. It hadn't been there the day before. I was sure of it. Underneath it was a small scrap of paper. 2 words, written in her handwriting. You'll regret that. I didn't know whether to laugh, scream, or cry. I checked every door, every window. Nothing was broken. Nothing was forced open. I don't know how she got in. I don't know when. But I locked every door in that house that night and slept with a baseball bat beside my bed. I never told anyone about the cardigan or the note. Not my therapist. Not my mom. Not even my best friend, Marlene, who'd been begging me to burn the whole family tree down since the dinner fight. I tied the cardigan in a trash bag like it was radioactive and dropped it into a donation bin next to a rundown gas station, 25 minutes from my house. I didn't want anyone tracing it back to me. I know that sounds crazy, but when you catch someone who's supposed to love you in your bedroom with your husband's hands on her back, then find her sweater folded in your guest room a week later, something inside you breaks. I started locking everything. Changed the garage code. Slept with a baseball bat and told Isla it was because of a raccoon. She didn't believe me, but she didn't ask either. For a few days, it was quiet. I thought maybe it was over. Then the school called. Isla had gotten upset during recess. Another girl told her my aunt said my mom was crazy, and that dad didn't leave, you made him. Isla said it calmly, like she knew it was meant to hurt. That night, I went through the storage bin in the garage. That's when I found the envelope. My name, written in thick black marker. Inside were printed bank statements, cropped texts, a Venmo transaction circled in red, every detail organized like evidence. She'd been collecting pieces of my life, building a story. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You won't answer him. That's not fair. Then another message. There are consequences to everything, Grace. The timestamp showed she sent it minutes before I found the envelope. She knew. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house and asked them straight out if they knew. They didn't deny it. Erin had told them I was overwhelmed, that someone might need to step in. They claimed they didn't think it was serious. I left without another word. On the drive home, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Marlene. She'd sent me a TikTok about narcissistic sisters who hide behind the victim mask. I pulled over and called her. This time, I told her everything. No fragments, no soft edges. From the beginning. She didn't hesitate. Let's burn it down. That night, after Isla went to a sleepover and Jesse disappeared into his headphones, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote the truth. Not dramatic. Just facts. When Erin moved in. How she never paid for anything. How she mocked my kids. Took money from our parents. Slept with my husband under my roof. And the part no one knew. The envelope of cropped screenshots, fake evidence, her attempt to paint me as unstable. I attached photos and sent it to the extended family group chat. Everyone. Then I turned off notifications and made dinner. The fallout was fast. Messages came in, apologies, shock, anger. An uncle admitted he'd given her money for groceries while she posted spa photos. Someone shared an old picture from a barbecue. Erin's hand on my husband's leg. Too familiar. I didn't say a word. I let it collapse on its own. Later that night, Jesse asked if his dad was coming back. I told him no. I told him the truth, that something had been broken and it wasn't his fault. He nodded and said, I still love him, but I don't think I can trust him again. He was 12 and somehow understood it better than anyone. Then Erin went quiet. 6 full days. No messages. No posts. Nothing. That silence scared me more than her noise. The email came from my husband's account. One line, "Please don't tell Isla the full story. Let me be her dad." I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Marlene. She texted back, "Bold of him to think he gets a vote." That weekend, I told my therapist I wanted to tell Isla the truth, because covering for them felt like protecting lies instead of my child. The next day, Jesse came home with a note in his backpack. Aaron's handwriting. An apology. A dig. A justification. I contacted the school immediately and made it clear she was not allowed near my kids. That night, I told them everything, just the facts. Isla cried and said she wished I'd told her sooner. Jesse didn't speak. He took the note and threw it away. After that, I sent one final message to the family. We were healing. I wasn't answering questions. I filed the divorce paperwork the next morning, but it's been quiet since. The kind of quiet after a fire. Everything smells like smoke, but there's nothing left to burn. I walk with Isla in the evenings. Jesse's back in therapy. I'm starting to feel like myself again. Some days still hurt, but I'm not haunted anymore. Neither are my kids. And this time, everything I care about is under my roof, and no one's getting past the door.